Hello everyone, it's me, Stephanie Sterling. I'm playing Iconfell, a story-driven game driven by a story, with battle settings designed to enable you, optionally, to just enjoy the story. I love it when story-driven games driven by a story let you just enjoy the story. I can't imagine, in fact, anybody being upset about that, because it makes sense. And is very usual. Oh, for fuck's sake.
The Difficulty Discourse is at it again. May our blindfolded gods have mercy on our souls. Following the news that Dragon Age Veilguard was getting a no-death accessibility mode, gamers began angrily declaring that they wouldn't be buying and playing the game anymore. Okay. If the idea of boycotting a game because some people you don't know could play it without dying if they wanted to sounds, I don't know, completely fucking weird, don't worry! Your intrepid reporter finally decided to seek answers from the gamers TM themselves. Exactly why is the existence of a very basic accessibility option that's technically been around as long as cheat codes have been a thing so offensive as to render the game unplayable? Well, when I asked why gamers couldn't just not use the no-death setting, I received this answer. I think you'll find that, at long last, this explains everything.
I know I don't need to explain this. I know you already know this, but here goes. Indicators are a thing. If a game is released that has, for example, some DLC that lets your medieval knight have, let's say, a pointed white hood, or a 20th century German mustache enthusiast emblem, or Confederate flag capes, etc., etc., you wouldn't buy that game. You wouldn't just not download that DLC. You wouldn't go near that game. Why? Indicators. That one design choice is an indicator for the design philosophy of the game, and you wouldn't risk spending your hard-earned cash on something whose design philosophy is something you don't want to see in gaming.
Oh! Oh, okay. Yeah. Thanks for clearing that up.
What's that smell?
The Difficulty Discourse has officially turned everybody's brains into weird soup. The elitist sneering and gatekeeping has become altogether more vicious and less sensible as time has gone on, and of course it's now just another front in the twisted culture wars. Giving a shit about disabled people is seen as another example of wokeism gone mad, another zero-sum game in which they're losing something somehow. The idea that accessibility is something you need to take a principled stance on the same way you would about literal Nazi iconography really speaks volumes about what a cunt you are. And don't censor that one, Zilla. These people are having principled political stances about the mere existence of accessibility options. They need to hear how cunty they're being. The fuck is wrong with you? That you think disabled access is something to take a principled stance against?
People are not amused.
It would be damn and bizarre if this uproar was about one of the usual hardcore gamer games, but Dragon Age Ventrilo isn't even a Souls-like. Dragon Age isn't known or celebrated for being difficult. It isn't known for requiring its players to get good. It's a BioWare game, an RPG regarded almost entirely for its story rather than its gameplay. I don't know if I've ever seen people shit their diapers to this extreme degree over difficulty options in a BioWare RPG before, but if I have, it certainly hasn't been like this.
You stink like a dead dog. We can't stand it. I can't put my honey poo through this.
As I say though, the Difficulty Discourse has finally turned people's brains into strange cheese, and the outrage is pure knee-jerk nonsense at this point. Very much like we discussed last week with the gamers TM whining whenever a female character gets a redesign, the backlash isn't about specific scenarios anymore, and it triggers a nasty little tantrum. Pure, unabashed reactionism. To cry foul over a story-driven game having a story-driven difficulty mode, to spunk blood in rage over those less able than you getting to enjoy the same toys you do, is to basically admit you just want players excluded for the sake of it. It is to admit that you are a cunt. You can censor that one.
Can, but won't.
Recently, online personality Alana Pearce found herself the focus of a witch hunt after Git-gooders decided to be pathetic little anuses about a comment she made that had been deliberately taken out of context and more or less lied about on social media. Making the case for a pause button in games like Elden Ring, Alana used the concept of parenthood to help non-disabled people relate to disability and understand how prohibitive it can be to play an unpausable game. If you believe the Git-gooders, however, what Alana did was demand Elden Ring be made easier because having kids is a disability. I don't know, maybe the gamers TM are right and my reading of her words is wrong. Let's look at what she actually said, while also understanding and acknowledging that it's part of an entire half-hour video, and see what the most reasonable interpretation of her words is. It's mine. The most reasonable interpretation is mine, not theirs. Mine.
There are long-term disabilities. There are situational disabilities, there are temporary disabilities. It counts as a disability where a video game like Elden Ring is concerned if you have a kid. You have a 2-year-old, you're trying to play Elden Ring, you can't pause. That is a situational disability that you have, where the game not having the option for you to be able to pause, for example, is a hindrance for your particular disability.
Alana has been dogpiled and attacked for making what is actually a very reasonable statement if you are capable of reason. Now, Alana and I are not super close, but in the interests of disclosure, I do consider her a friend. I've known her for a long time, and I've seen a lot of women-hating chuds disproportionately dogpile on her for having relatively uncontroversial opinions, like the fucking fiend she is. And my God, people really threw their dignity out the fucking window to be upset about this one. One of the most popular performatively outraged responses said it was the worst Elden Ring take they've ever seen. A response that was itself a far worse Elden Ring take. If thinking it'd be nice to be able to pause Elden Ring is one of the worst opinions about Elden Ring you've ever heard, I might be able to interest you in this fabulous new thing called the internet. Cause clearly you've never fucking been on it before. I kinda don't want to debate the actual core of the argument here because it, I don't know, feels pointless almost. The difficulty discourse is so poisoned by bad faith arguments and now bizarre political conflations that honestly most of it's beneath me. Bear in mind, I'm one of the original veterans of the difficulty discourse wars. You know, cause of that time I said I wouldn't mind if Dark Souls had an easy mode, and then for 10 fucking years Git-gooders screamed at me claiming that I was demanding From Software go casual. I learned a long time ago that trying to be reasonable with these people is a waste of time. It doesn't matter what words you use, because they've already decided which ones they're gonna stuff in your mouth for you. That said, when it comes to a pause button, I actually am gonna get pushy, because the inability to pause an offline game is stupid. And to clarify, I meant when playing a game like Elden Ring offline. I know you can have it online. Taking one of the most fundamentally basic, foundational functions out of a game for no other sake than to do it is honestly bloody clown shoes. I love Elden Ring, it's truly one of the greatest games ever made, an achievement of open world design and a landmark triumph of games that let you shoot lasers from your eyes. But the lack of a pause button when playing solo is not just exclusionary, it's archaic, outmoded, and an inelegant holdover from its online features. The fact so many Souls-likes have normalized unpausable gameplay as an integral part of the genre is honestly disappointing, because to me it displays a lack of good ideas. It certainly says you're just following a blueprint without fucking thinking for yourself. Any developer who would disable such basic functionality as pausing because they think it increases the difficulty somehow is being, well, fucking bad at game design, because that's such a crude, unimaginative, cheaply contrived way of doing it. I mean, as a dev, you could spend time crafting enemies with strategic AI and challenging attack patterns. You could design an intricate map with well-hidden traps. You could come up with thoughtful puzzles. Or you could disable basic functionality and hope that your players get killed because they had to answer their front door in the middle of a fight. That's not a balanced challenge. That's a game's balance trying to steal your front door's valor. A game's difficulty shouldn't be decided by when the FedEx guy turns up. Oh, I've almost beaten the Orphan of Kos. I hope my phone rings right now to make the game more fun, said literally fucking nobody. It doesn't add to it. Being unable to pause a game literally adds nothing. It's taking away one of the most rudimentary functions a game can have. People really need to learn the difference between challenge and inconvenience. Even at its least shitty, robbing a player of the ability to pause is a gross inconvenience. I've never played a game and thought I'd be having more fun if I couldn't press pause. But then again, I respect my own time. I reject the idea that the pause button even belongs in a discussion about difficulty in the first place. Being unable to pause to deal with real life is not a puzzle, it is not combat, it is not anything approaching an in-game challenge for a player to overcome. It's a game taking advantage of your real life circumstances. Like a little bitch. You can't get good at having no responsibilities, at not having your door knocked on, at not needing to take a fucking piss. Sorry gamers, but having no life is not a skill. Even leaving aside disability for a moment, just having a number of reasonable adult responsibilities, children included, makes an unpausable game not difficult, but patently fucking unfair. It's downright cheap. Fake difficulty. You can't pause real life. The least you should be able to do is pause your fucking games. And circling back around, being unable to pause a game can indeed be horribly prohibitive to people with disabilities. Whether it's a chronic pain sufferer who can't tell when they're about to have a literally disabling flare-up, or someone with challenges using the bathroom, or any other number of concerns, being able to just hold on 10 minutes until a fight is done, or you can find a safe place to hide, is a privilege that many people just do not have. This is one of those situations where the people loudly protesting against something are people who aren't affected by the situation one way or another. A lot of folks acting like they have a dog in this race seem to be able-bodied nerds who clearly don't have a lot of real-life responsibilities and concerns because they're spending all their time getting upset at someone wanting to pause a computer game. Basically, the only people who want this kind of quote-unquote difficulty are those who literally aren't affected by it. What they really want isn't the difficulty, they just want to exclude people for the sake of excluding them. It's mean-spirited, it's gatekeeping of the most petty and pathetic kind, it's privilege distilled. And another thing, I am disabled. I have several disabilities, my most publicised one being the herniated disc in my spine, which I've had to live with since 2016. I have also helped to raise children ever since I was a child myself. At the time of writing this exact line in the script, an 8-year-old just tripped over a dog next to me and is now yelling over my head to his granddad about wanting some new cuddly toy or other. That is to say, I have extensive experience with disability and extensive experience of caregiving, so I do consider myself reasonably qualified to say the following. If you're mocking the rhetorical relation between childcare and disability, shut the fuck up, fuck the fuck off, and sit the fuck down when you get there. Remember again, because this lead has been consistently buried, nobody is saying that having children is the exact same thing as a physical or mental disability. In fact, Alana was using Microsoft's own designation when calling it a situational disability, as in, your ability to do something is reduced by the situation around you. And in this case, bringing up children as a situational disability helps to give an approximate idea of what living with other forms of disability is like. To live with challenges you just can't choose to not have, that impact everything you do in your day-to-day life. And honestly, good analogy. As good a one as you can get. There is nothing I could say that would get a non-chronic pain sufferer to understand what it's like to suffer with chronic pain. Trust me, if you haven't lived with physical pain, intense amounts of physical pain, every waking moment for years, you do not understand. You simply do not understand. And no, having kids is absolutely not the same thing. But honey, I will take whatever rhetorical device I can get to at least help get someone in the mental ballpark. Children have many needs that end up taking precedence over and often can eat into your leisure time. They are an external force that you can at best manage but can't ever fully control. They stop you being able to do many things that those without them can, They get in the way. A lot. They are a constant factor in your life that impacts everything you choose to do and often take away the choices you do try and make. Speaking as someone who has to weigh going out to see my friends against the agonising physical pain I'll be putting my body through to do it, I can say with 100% confidence that the analogy works. The choice between doing what you'd like and the cost of doing so. The disruption to your best laid plans. The unpredictable and tenuous nature of your free time. The knowledge that such time is borrowed. Disability and parenthood are different games, ain't nobody saying otherwise. But the mechanics act in very much the same way. A lot of the restrictions are exactly the same. Not that many of the people acting outraged over this discussion seem to be disabled or have kids. It seems instead like what the Difficulty Discourse often seems like, a bunch of people without the lived experiences they're confidently opining on, screaming over the voices of those who actually know what they're talking about. Not all games are made for everyone, and that's okay. Words to this effect have become something of a catchphrase among the Get Good crowd. It's a nice little catch-all justification for excluding people, but I find it's rarely an attitude they consistently apply. I mean, the rage over Dragon Age Viddle Griddle having an optional option for people who aren't them demonstrates exactly how not okay they think it is when something's not been made for them. And that's really what it's all about, because these regressive, exclusionary fuckers just want to be exclusively pandered to, and they want that pandering to come at the specific expense of anyone who isn't exactly like them. When you're so fucking selfish that you're complaining about optional disabled access, you have lost any right to pretend that you don't just hate people who are different and actively want them to be excluded for those differences. Just admit it, you intellectual cowards. Admit you're ableist little shits. I still remember the angry reactions gamers had when sign language was introduced to Forza. Yes, anger. Over the inclusion of sign language. How selfish, how petty, how malicious, how fucking tiny do you have to be to get angry that deaf people can enjoy a video game a little bit better? You're like those old boomer fuckers who sneer at disabled parking spaces. No wait, you're somehow even smaller than that. At least a good parking space is something you could envy in a myopic, thoughtless, self-centered sense. What's there to be jealous of when a disabled person simply gets to play the exact same game as you? It's not just a low-stakes problem. You're having a very genuine zero-stakes one. This ain't even your circus. Stop shooting other people's monkeys. Growing up in England, I got to see the disgusting way disabled people are regarded here. This is a horribly ableist country where a right-wing press constantly whips up mistrust of us, and a welfare system is designed more to catch us out as freeloaders than actually provide the assistance we need. We're treated automatically like inconveniences at best and malingerers at worst, and I'm honestly so fucking tired of it. I'm sure as shit not even gonna pretend to take seriously a bunch of gatekeeping nerds tugging on their little plonkers and crying because we're allowed to play some computer games. I'm so fucking tired of you spoiled little brats. I hope you all run out of games to play because each one got too woke for you, and you feel universally excluded for no other reason than the mere concept of inclusion offended you. You're the only ones who deserve to feel excluded at this point, not least for the fact that you're literally doing it to yourselves.
Forgive me for being a bit croaky. I've been doing ring announcing in the wrestling and I've just lost my voice. But not enough to offer my final thoughts. So, I do find it interesting that people like myself have been accused over the years of demanding easy modes in games like Dark Souls, even though I've never demanded anything of the sort. I've said I wouldn't mind it. I've said it would be a nice idea. I said that audiences might appreciate it, but I never demanded it. As far as I can tell, when it comes to the difficulty discourse, there is only one side that's being demanding, and it's the people who don't want settings that have nothing to do with them. And that's what it's all about. People getting angry because something, one thing in a game, is not all about them. Thank God for me. I will see you next time, probably.